if you're actively relocating, whether it's this year or next, there are places that you need to know about because residents in these places are saying, don't come. So today, I'm going to talk to you about 7 places that you may want to avoid moving to in the near future and what's really going on behind the headlines. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Lily. If you're new here, I'm a travel journalist, and here on my channel, I help you travel more consciously, ethically, and also hear stories that are underreported but matter in the space that is travel, heritage, identity, and geopolitics, all of which influences how we move around the world. So I know I've said this before, probably many times, but moving abroad isn't just about picking the place with the best beaches or the least taxes or the most beneficial, I don't know what criteria that you're looking for. It's also looking at how your presence will impact the people in that destination. And a lot of times people overlook this because really there's not many people out there telling you about this. Now it's becoming more obvious because there have been more protests and pushback from locals in different places. So let's look at the 7 places that you should avoid and cross off your list. First up is Mexico City. You've heard the stories, you've seen the protests in the headlines recently. Mexico City is at a breaking point when it comes to having foreign residents and digital nomads in neighborhoods like Roma and Condesa. So what's really happening? Locals are fed up. They're saying they're being pushed out. There's no housing for them. It's not affordable. They've put out signs like Gringo Go Home. They've staged protests blaming Airbnb and other digital nomads for skyrocketing rents. Some areas have seen prices go up between 50 to 70%. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And here's the irony. In 2022, the current president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, used to be the mayor of Mexico City. And when she was mayor, she signed a deal with Airbnb and UNESCO to promote Mexico City as a hub for digital nomads and creative tourism. The intent was to stimulate the economy. Well, what happened is that it really accelerated the short-term rental boom, and now key neighborhoods are, devoid of their own residents because they can't afford it anymore. The city's responded somewhat since, and there have been proposed limits on short-term rentals. But implementation, of course, has lagged, especially ahead of major events like the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which Mexico will share with Canada and the United States. So why is this happening? Well, like many other places that are facing similar gentrification issues, it's not just about being an American. It's the fact that you're bringing more money than the people in the place have, economic inequality, and it's causing you to have more favorable options, and you're displacing residents from their housing and their heritage, because it is heritage when you live in a neighborhood generation after generation. Cultural displacement and settler colonialism. This is all very real. That is why the protests are taking place, and since the government didn't do anything about it, all took to the streets. And now they're demanding stronger protections for local residents. Let's talk Ghana. The year of return. Who hasn't heard of that? I mean, that was possibly one of the most brilliant tourism and relocation campaigns ever this century. And Ghana cashed in. It tapped into celebrities to bring back African Americans to Ghana under the pretext of reconnecting with your roots, coming back home and building a home there and settling there. All very good intentions. Now, some people say that the campaign was really just tapping into people's vulnerabilities, Americans' vulnerabilities, to get to their cash. On the other hand, what it's caused really over the years since then is skyrocketing prices. I actually wrote about this, by the way, when Ghana was tapping to celebrities to bring African Americans and what that impact was having and whether the economic benefit was actually trickling to Ghanaians themselves. And more recently, New York Magazine, years after my story, came out with a piece about this as well. So what's really happening? Property was being marketed in US dollars in Ghana. And of course, the prices were sky high for apartments, totally unaffordable for average Ghanaians. And the cost of living is very high in Ghana now. And there's a disconnect. There's a seeming disconnect between the African Americans who are coming with good intentions, but then some people say that there's entitlement there. And then locals say there are land disputes taking place where they're being shut out of certain villages and areas that are theirs. It's very complex. I can't break it down in one video. And I think it's worth having a podcast on this at some point. But yes, it is happening. Success of the year of return has caused this. And then the trickle-down effect has been a combination of no restriction on certain rent hikes and inflated prices, all of which has created resentment. You can see plenty of videos on this, including formal interviews on media outlets, even on YouTube, if you'd like to know more. Now, let's head south to Cape Town, South Africa, one of the most desirable places to live because of the views and the coastline and the infrastructure and the modernities in Cape Town. Actually, there's been pushback there too. South Africa's new digital nomad visa, launched in March 2025, requires that you have at least approximately 55,000 in annual income. Cape Town, however, has 25,000 short-term rentals, and so the mayor is now proposing a tax on Airbnbs. Lisbon and Barcelona. I don't know why I bunched these two together. I guess it's the Mediterranean, and they're very well known for having been super popular over the last 10 years. I actually went to Lisbon years ago before the huge rush. I'm so glad. And Barcelona too. But now these two hubs have been also pushing back. Residents are in deep housing crises. Portugal has ended its golden visa, which was for people who were buying property to be able to have residency through that visa. That's ended. It's also currently reviewing the terms of the D7 visa, according to Global Citizen Solutions. It is a passive income visa, popular with remote workers and retirees. It's still available, but authorities are reviewing eligibility for that. Lisbon, by the way, has seen major protests over this and over the skyrocketing rents, over the short-term rentals, pushing out residents. The golden visa changes and a tighter D7 review are part of a broader shift to manage overtourism, which, by the way, is very much linked with also all of this pushback that you're seeing against permanent residents. It all comes down to economic inequality between two different groups, the one that's coming in with the money and the one that's home that doesn't have it, and then is also being also losing their home to foreigners. In Barcelona also, we've seen this summer. Protests have gotten extremely intense. Tourists are being targeted directly, and there is a push to ban short-term rentals by 2028. We'll see if that actually happens or if it's rhetoric. So really, the result in Lisbon and in Barcelona is years of unchecked over-tourism, unchecked foreign investment, limited protection for locals that have literally broken the housing system. And repercussions are really hard because you lose an entire culture, you lose an entire neighborhood. You know, it's really hard to explain unless you've lived abroad and seen the importance of neighborhoods in the culture of many of these places. Tbilisi, Georgia. Now, you probably didn't expect that one, but you should check out my video on Tbilisi and Georgia. Beautiful destination, my goodness. In fact, I wondered how many people went there as digital nomads when I was there, because it's just so lovely, low-key, beautiful outdoors, affordable. And what's been happening actually is that because of the Ukraine-Russia war, a lot of Russians actually have gone over into Georgia, and that has caused a lot of tension because, you know, obviously the rents have gone up. Actually, they've gone up 200% according to news reports. And a lot of Russian digital nomads have moved in, and local resentment has been building because they say it's some kind of digital colonization. Landlords are preferring to rent to foreigners, the Russians who have money, versus locals. So it's probably not a place you want to be at the moment. Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rica has always been super famous for ecotourism. It's attracted tourists for years, not new. But things have really been shifting in Costa Rica. Areas like Nosara, Tamarindo, Puerto Viejo are all seeing major shifts. What's happening? Well, foreign buyers have been accounting for 40% of transactions in these areas. Property values have risen a lot, about 8% in 2024. And studio apartment rents also have skyrocketed. Zoning laws and local protests are emerging, and there's more. Crime has also been rising in Costa Rica. So why has this been happening? Well, just very quickly, because it's a short video, a surge of remote workers plus investors has driven up demand and pricing and housing demand and created opportunities for organized crime. Rapid, unregulated development is impacting both the social and the environmental fabric of Costa Rica. Last but not least, New Zealand. My goodness, if you get a chance to go, just visit New Zealand as a tourist, do so. Obviously, New Zealand has had a lot of over-tourism problems over the years, but since the pandemic, that has not been the case because of how restrictive they were.
And here's the thing, New Zealand introduced a brand new digital nomad visa in January 2025. It basically means you only work remotely for your overseas employer or overseas clients for a period of just 90 days.
It's a very high quality of life in New Zealand. It's very expensive, by the way. I very much remember that when I was there. And it's a small population. It's just like vast landscapes and fewer people, which is fantastic. But it's very vulnerable if there's unchecked relocation trends. So let's wrap up. I mean, these aren't just no-go zones. I'm just saying that you want to think twice about them before you decide to go there, because you don't want to walk into a place where people are resentful of your presence and make assumptions about your presence. But not only that, but you are bringing some sort of economic influence when you move. You might not think of yourself as wealthy, but if you do come from the US with the US dollar and you're retiring or you're buying property, you definitely have an up on many of these places and their residents. And so these are warning signs. This is a sign that you just shouldn't go to these places, that you should take into account and have empathy for people who live in these areas, who've been displaced, whose grandparents and great-grandparents lived there in these neighborhoods and are now no longer being able to afford it because the foreigners now here with their dollars. So you really want to learn to respect the communities that you move into and understand the impact of your presence. I will never repeat that enough on this channel. I've said it many times, and you can see my previous videos on this topic. But those are all things you want to consider in addition to having amazing Wi-Fi or an amazing beach nearby or an affordable condo, whatever that means to you. If you want to know how to be a more ethical digital nomad or future resident, stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, Tourism Lens. This is where we have honest conversations, not sugar-coated, not sponsored by anyone, not selling anything that is related to real estate. I do have guides though. You want to check out my cultural guides. And a podcast that is monthly and is free that you can join on very hot topics around the world that will also give you a sense of where you should live or not, and where you should consider visiting or how you should consider visiting places. So thank you for listening. I hope this was instructive, and stay tuned for more episodes. If there's a particular destination you'd like to know more about, let me know. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.